Good morning and welcome to the Daily Connect. My name is Raymond and I'm so glad you can be a part of this time together. We're looking at God's Word. We're seeing where the Lord is leading us and who the Lord is calling us to be. Thank you so much for waking up early, sharing in this time together to look at where the Lord leads us in his through His Word, and really He's really calling us into a bigger and more fulfilling life in Him. And so let's hear from Him. Let's understand what He's trying to say through His Word. We've been going over the Gospel of Mark, and we're actually at the very end of it right now. Today we enter into the final chapter, and technically the final portion that is believed to be written by the author Mark, and just at least these first 8 verses of chapter 16. We have been looking at the ministry of Jesus leading up to his crucifixion, and then now today we're going to be looking at his resurrection. So exciting stuff. Last couple of days we've been looking at all the horrific things that Jesus went through for us. As I've been sharing a lot lately, we need to fully comprehend the magnitude of the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, all that He endured. That should have been us. That should have been us going through all of that, but yet He did it all because of His great love for us. So, and it's such in a sense, a good transition into what we're going to be looking at today, which is the resurrection. And technically, we don't actually see Jesus or read about Jesus resurrecting, but there is such great news, supernatural events that are taking place here. But without further ado, let's get into it. Good morning to each and every one of you, to Missy, to Esther, happy birthday, Esther, to Joanna, to Alistair and Bernadette, Rich. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing in this time together. I want to encourage all of you watching this but haven't popped in and said hi yet. Encourage one another through the ministry of presence by just jumping into the live chat and saying hi to one another. I mean, just that alone can encourage us and remind us that we're in this together. All right, let's go ahead and let's pull up a comfortable chair. Let's grab something warm to drink. I've got my water here. Grab your Bible, physical Bible, and let's open it up to Mark chapter 16. Mark chapter 16. We're just going to look at the first 8 verses today, and let's see what the Lord has to say. Again, we're going through the Gospel of Mark, and I titled this Emptiness, or quote unquote, emptiness of the good news. The resurrection is recorded. Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. Let's take a look. We're just going to go through this one verse at a time, and I just want to share some of my thoughts, some of my notes, as we look at each of these verses here. Starting with verse 1. When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go and anoint Him. Again, a couple things to note here. First off, where we last left off was the burial of Jesus. Joseph of Arimathea coming out and asking for the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave that right over to Joseph. That was on the day before the Sabbath, or the evening. I should say the afternoon before the Sabbath. So it would have been Friday afternoon of Passion Week. Now we are a full 36 hours after that. So from the start of the day, which is in the evening, 6 p.m., according to first century Jewish tradition, or their way of understanding the day, It started in the evening, and then now we're into the morning. We learn from verse 2 that this is very early in the morning of the first day of the week, which we'll get into in a minute. But this is the body has of Jesus has now been laid to rest for a total of 36 hours. And you can well imagine in that environment, the body has already started to decompose, and so here the women are wanting to address that. This section here may not have been a part of the original, because the description of the second Mary that is mentioned here is different from what we read in the previous section. Here we see she is Mary, the mother of James, and not shown as Mary, the mother of Joseph. But it's a small detail. But a lot of people look at this and say, well, this must have been an addendum, or this must have been added later to further the story by Mark. But just an interesting side note there. Not that it plays a huge role in the telling of the story. The spices were bought after the Sabbath, and so they must have bought it at the end of Saturday afternoon, when the day of Sabbath has ended, and probably while the shops were still open. They bought the spices during that time, but then it probably was too late in the evening to go out to the tomb to anoint the body. If you combine this with what we read in John chapter 19, verses 39 to 40, we see that Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea were the ones who prepared the body and laid it to rest on the day of preparation. And Nicodemus had used 75 pounds of myrrh and aloes before. He had gotten that much for the burial. Now, it could be that he didn't get to use it, or it could be that he anointed the body and the women just didn't know. But it is just kind of an interesting side note. There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of activity. In a sense, there's a lot of witnesses to Jesus having died. There's a lot of witnesses to testify about what has happened to Jesus. You've got the testimonies of the women. You've got the testimonies of these Sanhedrin, these religious leaders, amongst many others, as well as that centurion. There's a lot of witnesses to what happened here. Verse 2. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. So again, this is the first day of the week, Sunday. And part of the reason why Christians celebrate or have their worship services on Sundays to celebrate the resurrection, to signify that Jesus is alive. Very early, the understanding here is that it was probably a couple hours before sunrise. It's before the sun even peeks through, that the women had already started making their way over to the tomb. Verse 3. And they were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?" As the women are approaching the tomb, this is something that they hadn't considered. They hadn't considered about the stone. Otherwise, they would have brought some men along to help with moving the stone, or a group of people to assist with opening up the tomb here. But clearly, they had not considered this, and probably understandably so, because there's a lot of things going on, probably a lot to process through, a lot on their minds, and one of the last things that they would be thinking about is, what about that stone? What about that stone? Verse 4. And looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back. It was very large. In Matthew chapter 28, verse 2, indicated that, excuse the misspelling there, indicated that an angel had actually rolled away the stone. The women here did not witness that. They just found the stone rolled away. And so, but in Matthew's account, somehow it was captured that an angel had actually moved the stone. And what we see here is that clearly it is a supernatural event. We also learn from Matthew that the door was sealed. We also learn from Mark here that it was very, very large. And if you've gone to Israel, if you've gone on any number of the tours, they probably would have shown how big this stone disc really is. It's massive, and it's heavy. It's literally impossible for a single person to move it by himself. But here you have a supernatural event that has taken place. The stone has the seal has been broken around the stone, and the stone has been moved to open up the tomb. But this ultimately shows that Jesus, this resurrection moment, is supernatural to begin with. Verse 5. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were alarmed. Young man here can be interpreted as an angel, because that's how Matthew 28 interprets it, that there was a young man there. And I believe in the Gospel of John, there were actually two angels that were listed there. Is there a discrepancy? I'm sure there is, but again, this all comes down to who's writing it and the proximity to the story itself. Verse 6. And he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him." So here, this angel, this young man here, makes an explicit affirmation about the resurrection of Jesus. I know who you're looking for. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, or Jesus the Nazarene, and the one that was crucified, that you guys all saw and witnessed. Well, he's not here. Come and look. He is not here. This is as plain as you can get. To fully identify who they're looking for, and to confirm that he is alive, that he is no longer here. And ultimately, this is a matter of faith. This is a matter of faith. Whether it is seeing the young man, this angel here, or seeing Jesus himself, I mean, it really takes faith to believe that Jesus is alive. Jesus is not here. There's all kinds of ways to explain it off, but it comes down to, do you believe that Jesus is alive? The women were the first ones to be told, which is such an extraordinary thing. We often talk about how in the Jewish culture of the first century, the women were considered lesser to the men. But here, Jesus clearly elevates them and basically gives them the opportunity to experience some of the most incredible things or teachings. You think about John chapter 4, this encounter with the woman at the well, the first woman, Gentile woman at that. And even then, a woman that is not married, that has been married 5 times over, she has the opportunity to to see Jesus, to recognize him as the Messiah. Here you have these women who have been faithful to Jesus and just following him literally to the cross and then to the tomb, and to be the first ones to see that Jesus has risen. Jesus has been risen by God, because this is an event that cannot be done any other way. God had to have been a part of this. Verse 7. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. Now, this verse here is also very significant, impactful. When you consider what the disciples had been doing, these words here effectively shows that Jesus has forgiven them, or at least via the angel here, they are forgiven. Yes, they were the ones that said, "We will stick by your side regardless of the circumstances," only to find themselves fleeing in all directions. And Jesus coming back and saying, "I'm looking forward to meeting up with you. We're going to go and meet up at the place that I had told you about." He is forgiving them, especially Peter. Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times, he is being restored here. He counted as among the disciples here. They are being restored. And then you also see Jesus fulfilling upon his promise that was spoken of back in Mark chapter 14, verse 28. We're going to be coming back to Galilee at a later point after I have risen. It probably didn't make sense back then, but now in this moment, for them to see, wow, okay, Jesus is alive, and he's saying what he had said earlier. You're going to meet up with me back in Galilee. Wow. And the word "going before" here is proago. And the word really communicates, to proceed, to lead the way, and what Jesus is, what the angel here is communicating on behalf of Jesus. Jesus is going to lead the way. He's going to go ahead, proceed to the place where he had said that they would meet up in Galilee. And so again, it's such a significant point here to make. Jesus is the one who leads the way, and he's already where he wants us to be, if that makes sense. Let's wrap this up. Verse 8. And they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and astonishment had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Now, if this is indeed the last part of the Gospel of Mark, even if it was added at a later time, this verse here alone, it can be very problematic, because it's quite the opposite of what the other Gospels say of the women. Here you see the women are terrified. They're scared. They're trembling and just filled with this astonishment that they went away in this fearful state, and also they didn't tell anyone, despite what the angel had said. This is quite contrary to what we read in Matthew 28 and Luke 24, where the women were gripped with joy, and they went and they told the disciples. Right? So a lot of people look at this and they may be troubled by it because of how different it is. But yet again, it's not that it is wrong or it is contradictory. It is just a different perspective, and perhaps there was a moment where they just didn't want to tell anyone. But this is also where the Gospel of Mark technically ends. Verses 9 on is listed, but it's also, especially in a lot of our translations, it's bracketed. But here we conclude with this moment where the women are gripped with this fear, and they told no one about it. They probably just needed time to just process through all of this before it hits them. We better tell the disciples. And again, the reason why it's believed that this is where the Gospel of Mark ends is because the earliest manuscripts, the two earliest manuscripts that we have of the Gospel of Mark, ends right here. Verses 9 on, what we're going to be looking at tomorrow, are verses that, well, I'll go into that a little bit more tomorrow. But let's just look at these verses here, these 8 verses, and ask yourself, what is your big takeaway? In light of the women, their dialogue and their discovery of the empty tomb, what's your big takeaway in all of this? Share it in the live chat. Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. What is God speaking to you through these verses, through these 8 verses? For me, my big takeaway is this: the emptiness of the tomb, the fact that it was found empty. Of course, with the linen cloth neatly folded on the shelf where the body would have been. But the emptiness of the tomb is also a supernatural component of the gospel. When you really consider going into this tomb and seeing, wow, it is empty, and the fact that that no one had moved, that there was no struggle, there was no evidence of anything other than the fact that the body is gone, the linen cloth is folded up nicely, the massive stone door, this circular stone disc has been moved off to one side. All of this is supernatural, and that is an integral part of this gospel message. It is all God. God is the one who makes this possible. There's no other way to explain it. That this is truly a supernatural moment. That's an important part of the gospel message. Do we talk about the supernatural? Do we talk about the God component in all of this, or do we only talk about the shedding of the blood on the cross? Is that the only thing that we share about the gospel? We need to be complete. We need to be mindful of the fact that this is God who makes a way. God who sacrificed his son, God who supernaturally had all of these things taken care of, to really convey this message. I really love you, and I love you so much that I'm willing to sacrifice my son, and let me show you how much I love you. Wow. Amen. All right. Thank you again for sharing this time together. You guys are awesome. Thank you for waking up early or staying up late, whichever the case may be. And, like I always say, as you give this time over to the Lord, I really believe God's going to bless you. As we share in this time together in his word, God is going to work mightily through each and every one of you. All right, with that, God bless you guys. I hope you have an opportunity to meditate upon this passage a little bit more throughout this day. And yeah, how does the Lord speak to you? Share it in the comments below if you're learning something new in all of this. With that, love you guys. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.